يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما والذين لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ولا يزنون ومن يفعل ذلك يلقى أثاما يضاعف له العذاب يوم القيامة ويخلد فيه مهانا إلا من تاب وآمن وعمل عملا صالحا فأولئك يبدل الله سيئاتهم حسنات وكان الله غفورا رحيما ومن تاب وعمل صالحا فإنه يتوب إلى الله متابا صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُم مَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. And if you were to ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would say Allah. Subject, firstly, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A subject that is so often discussed and so often debated. And even those that fail to acknowledge the existence of a creator are held down by the fact that they know that a creator exists. This is what keeps them down. And thus they will always say, we can't prove that a God does exist, and we cannot prove that a God does not exist. However, they will always take the stance of believing that God does not exist, even though they sit in the middle. When you mention to anyone, or if I was to meet someone or mention to anyone that I've just met, anything that they're not accustomed to or they're not used to, then they will inquire as to why there is a change in their life. If a ripple comes into their life. You ever seen those people that suddenly become, they have istabsru, which means they start to see. You know those people that say, why wasn't I told that Imam Hussein was killed in Karbala, for example? And it changes their life. This is the grandson of the Prophet. No one told me this. Why? And they start to investigate, and that's what brings them towards the path of guidance. Or, for example, the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. The first time I went to the Hajj when I was in Medina, we would go and we assume Fatima alayha salam was buried in Medina, as we are told. One person is asking for the graves of different people. This wasn't a fellow of Ahlul Bayt. And then he asked, where is the grave of Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad? Just a question, honestly. I sat there and I thought, I was 19 years old at the time, and I thought to myself, wow. Honestly, this question should change your whole life. Everyone's grave is found. Even one of the companions that was like Uthman ibn Affan, that was buried amongst the Jews. They actually threw his body in a Jewish cemetery. They found his body. They said, that's it. Extend Baqi' so he can become in the Islamic cemetery. And all these other companions and wives and people that were with or not with, even the infant that died at 1.5 years, like Ibrahim, the son of Rasulullah, has a grave in Baqi'. Yet Fatima alayha salam doesn't have a grave. Or does, and it's unknown. It changes the way someone thinks. So when a child comes home and their parents tell them, listen, all this life that you've lived, we've been good parents to you, and the child says yes, they say, look, we're not really your parents. You've been adopted. The child just doesn't accept, that's okay, let that go, let's continue our life. No. The dynamics of their life flip upside down. They want to search for what is true. Then the question comes to you and I. Why do people want to search for answers? Why do they want to search for the truth? You take a look at it. We're considered to be what? By atheists and biologists, what do they call us? Human beings? No, they call us animals. Okay, we're animals, like they say. There's a group of ants, you watch them, they're following a trail. Put a block in the trail. What do the ants do? One of the ants stands in front of the wall and says, hold on, let's find out who put this block. The second one sits there and goes, maybe it was one. And then you see them, they've all corroborated, they're sitting down trying to work out. No, that's not what happens. They go around it. Why? Because they act on instinct. They just move around the wall and they keep on their merry way. Why don't humans do this? Why doesn't a human being do the same thing? When a human being is told something is different, why don't they just continue on their merry way? Why is it they always want to ask questions? Why is it if someone comes and tells you something about your religion at school, you don't just say, oh no, I'm going to believe, I'm blind. You come home and ask your parents, do we actually believe in this? You want to know. Why do you want to know? Because someone's thrown a spanner in the works. I need to ask questions. So, why are we like this? The messenger of Allah, Al-Rasul Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, says in a hadith, he says, كُلُّ مَوْلُود, meaning what? Everyone that is born. كُلُّ مَوْلُود يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ, that everyone that is born is what? Born upon, if you'd say the origination, what they were originally made. What is the fitrah? Everyone, you've heard this in the Quran, fitratullah. What is the fitrah? You know, when you meet someone, they'll tell you, هذا بعد على الفطرة. What does that mean if someone's upon fitrah? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, يعني المعرفة بأن الله عز وجل خالقه. The fitrah is the gnosis or the understanding that Allah Almighty is His creator. Everyone that is born knows that they are a creation and there is a creator. كذلك قوله. This is why the introductory verses are used. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُم مَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If you were to ask them who created the heavens and the earth, what do they say? لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامُ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ. That they should say, surely it is Allah. Everyone knows there is a God. Even someone that is, say, dropped at birth, like Tarzan. You know, although it's a fictitious story, let's say he was dropped at birth or raised by the apes, or Mowgli in the Jungle Book, raised by wolves. They know that they were created. You know, they don't just look around and say, listen, they're wolves, I'm a wolf too. You know, I'm a wolf too. They don't say that. They won't accept that. There's something about, they know that there's a creator. One of the examples I always use when I teach people Aqidah is I use the example of a movie that was, I know I love using my references, pop culture. Movie that was made in 1979 called Star Trek, the original movie. Although it's a terrible movie, don't watch it. That there is this thing consuming the universe because it's seeking something. It's seeking something, it's looking for something. And then they find out, what are you looking for? It's looking for who created it. Who was the one that made me? Because they know this is inherent in everything. So they made it like this manufactured item, this inanimate computer or satellite, as it was. Voyager 6 was made by them. In other words, it would seek who made it. And this is what fitrah is. You ever see that? Someone showed me a video recently of a child, and the father says to the child, he says to the child, if someone's going to give us a house, a mansion, pool, live a lavish lifestyle, all this, and it's all yours, but there's only one condition. And he said, what's the condition? He said, we have to renounce Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We have to give up our love for Imam Hussein. Now when the child hears this, he retorts, he retaliates in such a way. We don't want such a house from such a person. We don't want to deal with such a person. Want anything to do with this person. Hold on. Imam Hussein alayhi salam wasn't his father or mother. Imam Hussein alayhi salam wasn't someone living in his house all the time. There are people that actually come to Majalis Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and later renounce the deen. You've seen this. They give up religion. Next second you see them, they've left religion. What is it that makes someone so attached to Imam Hussein alayhi salam? It's a fitrah. It's fitrah. They're attached, they can't leave. They can't leave, they can't detach this love from their hearts. This is fitratullah. This is the origination. This is the way Allah Azza wa Jal has. This is our predisposition. This is the way that we are. It's innate within us, innate knowledge, and this is what the fitrah is. So this is the first thing that we have to acknowledge that we have a creator. Someone created us, and that creator is Allah Azza wa Jal. Another thing that is narrated عن الإمام الحسن ابن علي ابن محمد العسكري صلوات الله وسلامه عليه, the father of Imam al-Mahdi. Imam al-Askari, in this narration where they ask him for the meaning of what? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What is the purpose of saying the Basmalah? Why is it when I begin something I say Bismillah? I want to eat, Bismillah. I want to undertake any activity, Bismillah. You want to go ziyarat Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, what do you say as you're walking? Bismillah wa billah. Bismillah for everything. Everything I begin in the name of God. Imam al-Askari salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says, Allah huwa alladhi yata'allahu إليه عند الحوائج والشدائد كل مخلوق. عليكم السلام. الله هو الذي يتأله إليه. What does this mean? يتأله إليه. Who? عند الحوائج والشدائد كل مخلوق. So كل مخلوق. Let's put it in the. Let's make it into in English grammar. Every creation does what? They deify Allah. Allah becomes their God when? عند الحوائج والشدائد. So when they have any need or difficulty, suddenly what? There is a God. And then, before I move on, everyone what it's trying to say is everyone turns to God in a difficult situation. You ever ask yourself, what happened to the Roman Empire? What made Rome turn into the Byzantine Empire? Was Constantine wanted to win a battle, he turned to God. They turned to God last second, and then the people around him said, but he's like Pharaoh, turns to God, but when it works out for them, they pull the plug. Abraham Lincoln, in the most bloody, the war that cost, which war cost more American lives than any other war? Which one? Them killing themselves. The Civil War. During the Civil War, he got down on one knee and he asked Allah, because this is what they do, they ask God for assistance. Do you remember 9/11? After it happened, George W. Bush said, all we can do is pray. Everyone turns to God in a difficult situation. Then the Imam says, عند انقطاع الرجاء من كل من هو دونه. Once I've lost hope in everyone other than God, when I've lost hope in everything, there's no other than God. One man came up to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and said, Yabna Rasulullah, I don't believe in God anymore. And the Imam asked him, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm a fisherman. He said, have you ever been out at sea in a boat? Yes. Was there ever a storm, turbulent weather? Yes. What happened? You know, think about this. When you're out today, you've got your beacon, or you've got your, you got all your navigating systems, you got your life jacket. You know, there's always something out there. Forget the water. Before I go into the story, what about these people that go out hunting? A lot of the boys here go hunting. What happens when you lose the trail? What would you do if you were out, 7 hours out, into New South Wales, you run out of petrol, and you got nothing? You don't know how to get back. You got nothing, no reception, nothing. What do you do there? You got no flare. You got none of those gadgets that they give you to help you eat. What would you do in that situation? So this guy's out at the sea. He says to the Imam, not only was I stuck in a storm, the boat capsized. Now, have you ever tried to swim in the weather at the shore of a beach? On the shore, forget in the ocean. In the shore when it's windy weather, when the waves are throwing everything. It's almost impossible. You know, and even if you do, you've got to be Susie Maroney and for you to be lasting out in the water somewhere. Now these people that go out into this water and they get stuck, they know what I'm talking about here. So the Imam said to him, when this all happened to you, what did you do? What did you do? He said, I held onto something. He said, what? He said, I was hoping. The Imam said, there was no one there to help you. He said, I held on to something. The Imam said, that is Allah. If you didn't have this inside you, that someone's going to save me, that last thing, you wouldn't hold on to anything. You'd just give up. You'd lose hope. You would lose hope. There would be no more hope left. Then it says, then the Imam says, وَتَقَطُّعِ الْأَسْبَابِ مِنْ جَمِيعِ مَا سِوَاهُ. So not only when all hope has been severed except for Allah, but also when all the means of attaining any help have been what? Cut off. There's nothing left at all except Allah. You know when some people go into a hospital and they're terminal patients. This is in Iran, this happens. They'll come in, doctor, and say, listen, doctor will say, listen, I can't do anything for you anymore. And the patient says, what do I do? And he points towards the shrine. He says, that's all you have. You have Imam Ali ibn Musa. Just go there. That's all you're left with. You're left with the connection to Allah. There's nothing left for you. When everything's been cut, when there's nothing, you only have Allah left. What makes this happen is Allah has put this within the BIOS, our original makeup, that we have this connection to Allah. The next thing that we have is what, and this is a point, I mentioned last week, the discussion between the fifth holy Imam, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and the Damascene scholar. But I didn't mention the beginning of the discussion. And this brings us towards the law of causality. You'll probably hear when they discuss momentum, cause and contingency, but I'm not going to go into all three. We'll just talk about causality. What we mean by causality is what causes things to happen. For example, we could use for motion, what would have motion? Motion is the orbit and all these things that move. How would they move? The laws of inertia, Newton's first law. If I was to look at Newton's first law, the laws of inertia, everything is at what? Everything's at rest until what? A force has been applied. Then it can move. A motion takes place. Every motion needs to have moved by something moving that strikes it. One good example you'll probably see, if you've seen lawn bowls. Lawn bowls is a good example of that. Someone rolls the ball and sits, it's at rest. The next ball comes in, strike, the second it hits that ball, what happens? It moves. Both Newton's first and Newton's third law come into use at this point. Okay, so what happens is, this is what we're talking about motion. Here I want to talk about causality. The Imam Al-Baqir salawatullah alayh, he's asked by the Damascene scholar. He says to him, وَقَدْ سَأَلَهُ رَجُلٌ مِنْ الْعُلَمَاءِ said Ahl al-Sham. He says, فَالْشَيْءُ خَلَقَهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ أَوْ مِنْ لَا شَيْءٍ. Or the things created from something or nothing. Remember, what did we say was the first creation God made was what? Who remembers last week's discussion? Ma, that's right, water. So the Imam says, خلق الشيء لا من شيء كان قبله ولو خلق الشيء من شيء إذا لم يكن له انقطاع أبدا. So if we begin with the first thing, how was the first thing created? Water. How was water made? Was water made from something that was there before or not? If it was made from something that was there before, what do we have again? An infinite regression. Water was made, let's say it was made from hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Hydrogen and oxygen atoms were made from something that's far smaller. That far smaller thing was made from something. And we keep going forever and it'll be an infinite regression. There has to be something that wasn't created. Something that is above and beyond all this, and that is the one that began the creation, and that is Allah. So then the Imam says, وَلَمْ يَزَلِ اللَّهِ إِذًا وَمَعْهُ شَيْءٌ وَلَكِنْ كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَا شَيْءً مَعْهُ. So if we say there's an infinite regression, that means Allah always had something with him. So Allah was never alone. In other words, there was always in this infinite regression something with God. But something has to begin somewhere. So there must be what we said, the first causer, and then the uncaused being Allah who does all this. The next point we have with regard to proving the Creator, the existence of Creator, is in existence itself. Okay? Someone's having a little fun with the toilet, banging the doors, so stop them so we can continue. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay. This is the only way things can be explained when it comes to the existence. Signs that are in the existence and the way that we subsist. Okay. Al-Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, in this excerpt from one of the sermons in Nahj al-Balagha, I had to really, I would have loved to read the whole thing. It was so amazing, but I had to really crush it. The Imam says, أيها المخلوق السوي. When he says أيها المخلوق السوي, the words are very carefully chosen. This creation, I was talking to us, you, O creation that was made equitably, made with everything within you for its purpose. Remember, I mentioned sometimes I remember there was a scientist back in the early 1800s. He actually wrote a book. I can't remember if anyone remembers the guy's name. He had 86 things what he said that are excessive, are extras in the human body. 86 things. They're extras in the human body that he says these are still in a transitional evolution. They're not meant to be there. They're supposed to drop off from the last stage, but they didn't. This is what he says. But everything that has a purpose, things like, I'll give you an example, like, and this is so, the hubris in naming this, the appendix, like it's an extra, we didn't need this. Or people that question, why do men have nipples? What's the point? They're not going to breastfeed, Or the blind spot in the eye, why do we have a blind spot in the eye? People that question these things, they say these are what do they call faults in creation. They're inconsistent. They're errors in creation. All right. So the Imam is saying you've been created equitably. You've been created for what your purpose is rightfully. He says, "Wal munsha'u al-mar'i." So the next point that he's talking about the way we have come about, how we have been nurtured. He says, في ظلمات الأرحام ومضاعفات الأستار. So the rest of the narration, I didn't go into it. But he's talking about, till I give you the end of it, he's talking about the darkness of the womb. Remember this veil upon veil, that you're in there. This is how you were created. From there you started. This is where your creation. Even there, they don't consider you to be in existence. Isn't that true? You're not considered to be human according to the world today until you what? Till you've come out. When you're out, they say, yep. But even that will change. Mark my words. Even that will change. You'll still be allowed, and you mark my words, time will come where you will be allowed to terminate a baby. You'll see this. I said this. You'll listen to this. It will happen. You'll be allowed to terminate. You'll say, hold on, don't want this kid. Why? I know one eyebrow is higher than the other. Don't want it terminated. And it will happen. And if you look it up, medical ethicists have spoken about this. Even medical ethicists has written a journal in Melbourne. There's one in the United Kingdom. There's even one in Milan. Look them up. There's 3 that I know of, journals I've written by medical ethicists that say it's okay for someone to be able to terminate a baby because they're not a person yet. Look them up. These are journals that actually exist by academics. So anyway, they're in this womb. Darkness, nothing. What do you know? Nothing. You're being nurtured, you know nothing. Then the Imam says, ثُمَّ أُخْرِجْتَ. This is after I've cut out a massive segment. He goes, ثُمَّ أُخْرِجْتَ. After all this, you've come out of this womb. He says, ثُمَّ أُخْرِجْتَ مِن مَقَرِّكَ. You've been brought out from where? You're taken out from the maqar, you're in the abode that you're in. He says, إِلَى دَارٍ لَمْ تَشْهَدْهَا وَلَمْ تَعْرِفْ سُبُلَ مَنَافِعَهَا. Firstly, you're in an abode. You've been taken out of this abode to another place that you have never seen. Nor do you know how to acquire the benefits there. Let's take off for now. If they picked you up right now and they dropped you in the middle of, let's say, Yakutsk or Greenland, because no one's going to know Yakutsk. Someone put you in the middle of Greenland. They just dropped you off there and said, survive. Even if they gave you the equipment to survive, you wouldn't know where you're going. What are you going to do? Where do I hunt? What do I eat? How do I get water? How do I stay warm? You're not going to know what to do. Now, you've come into this world in the same manner. You've come into this world not knowing anything. Then the Imam says, فَمَنْ هَدَاكَ لِإِشْتِرَارِ الْغَذَاءِ مِنْ ثَدْيِ أُمِّكَ. What made you know that you get your sustenance from your mother's breast or from your formula milk or whatever they're using now? But what made you realize this is where you are sustained? He says, وَعَرَّفَكَ عِنْدَ الْحَاجَةِ مَوَاضِعَ طَلَبِكَ وَإِرَادَتِكَ. So firstly, not only this, not only that you're getting sustenance from, the Imam is saying he taught you the location and what you required or wanted. In fact, he taught you the means. You cry so you can get it. Who taught you this? Why didn't you naturally just laugh to get fed? Why is it immediately you cry? Why? Why is this proof that there's a creator? There's someone that gives you this ability to know, gives you the guidance to know this is where I eat, this is how I eat, this is what I eat. Think about this. Why doesn't a child try to tear off a flesh of meat in someone? Why is it they know I have to suckle in order for me to get the sustenance? Why? This is hidayah from Rabb al-Alameen. You can say, oh, they don't have teeth. You might say that. But if you want to say that, some scientists used to think that animals with canines were what? Herbivores. For many years, I mentioned this before, for many years, the baboon was considered to be a herbivore, even though it has canines this big. But they considered it to be a herbivore and an insectivore. Until one day someone noticed it killed a Thompson's gazelle, so they said, now it's an omnivore. Even now, the hubris, where they say every bear is what? An omnivore except the polar bear. What do they say? They're carnivores. Because we've only observed them eating flesh. But you don't know the rest of it. I thought they were carnivores too until I watched that Russian feeding biscuits to a bear and the bear was eating them. So for you to have, I'm talking about a polar bear there, for you to have that opinion, that's hubris. That's arrogance. That's having pride in what your opinion is. So in other words, what the Imam is saying here, it's in existence itself. The way things happen in such a perfect manner. You, O creation of God, that did not know, you human being that did not know, you come into this world and you have this prior knowledge of where your sustenance is and how to have your sustenance. How that I must eat this sustenance. And likewise, even the animal kingdom has the same thing. What makes them know this? What makes them know that they have to suckle? Honestly, think about this. You know the birds? You ever seen those birds that, especially think about the birds that sit in those, imagine the offspring of a harpy eagle or something, up in these high emergent trees, are waiting for the mother to feed them. No, even better, penguins. How long do penguins sit and wait for the mother to bring back food? Or albatross, how long do they wait for the mother to bring back the food? Why don't they sit there and say, listen, I'm not going to get fed now. Better jump from this nest. Better go look for something to eat. What is it that makes them wait? What is it? This is evidence of the existence of a creator. Then, the next point that people will bring in this when we talk about the signs of existence. Imam Abi Ja'far al-Baqir salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh mentions there when they ask him about the verse وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. Whoever is blind with this will be blind, okay, in the hereafter. The Imam says this means فَمَنْ لَمْ يَدُلَّهُ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ وَدَوَرَانُ الْفَلَكِ بِالشَّمْسِ وَالْقَمَرِ وَالْآيَاتِ الْعَجِيبَاتِ. He says the one that does not find the creator. Okay? Sorry, I didn't finish it off. عَلَى أَنَّ وراء ذلك أمرا هو أعظم منه. So we'll stop there before I continue. That if they do not guided by the signs of what? He says as-samawat wal ard, the creation of the heavens and the earth. If someone sees the creation of the heavens and the earth and the difference between the night and the day and the orbit paths of all the creations, the sun, the moon, the planets, all these things, if these do not make you wonder about a creation or the signs that are wonderful or strange or amazing to mankind, that there is someone behind this, that there's a great creator behind this creation, the Imam says, فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. In the hereafter, they will be what? Blind. قَالَ فَهُوَ عَمَّا. He says, فَهُوَ عَمَّا لَمْ يُعَايِنْ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. That this person must be blind in the hereafter. Why? If you are blind to what you can see, of course you're going to be blind to the belief in the hereafter. You're going to be blind to the belief in the unseen. Talking about the blind of heart. You'll be blind. If you cannot see what is before you, how can you believe in the unseen? You cannot have belief otherwise. And then the final two things. One is when they ask Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, they say, بِمَا عَرَفْتَ رَبِّكَ. They mention this narration, بِمَا عَرَفْتَ رَبَّكَ يَا أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. How did you know your God? And the Imam mentions three things. I knew God exists through three things. Of many other things which I've given you. But these are three things you need to think about. He says, عَرِفْتُ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ بِفَسْخِ الْعَزَائِمِ. The first thing that led me to knowing God exists is فَسْخ الْعَزَائِمِ. You know when you're firmly determined to do something, you have a firm intention, like you know when they say, next week this is happening. When this gets cancelled, you know God exists. One big example is what? Who hosted the 1936 Olympic Games? No, it was 1936. Who hosted the 36? Was it 36? Huh? No, 56 was Melbourne. 36 was Berlin, actually. So Berlin hosted the 36 Olympic Games. They were the last Olympic Games to run. Who hosted the 1940? Who won the thing? It's funny. This is actually one of the funniest things I ever knew. Berlin was 36 and 40 was Tokyo. Believe it or not, the two countries that instigated the Second World War. So anyway, Tokyo was supposed to host the 1940 Olympic Games. What happened? 1939, Germany invaded Poland, World War II began. Isn't that right? What happened to the Olympic Games? Gone. The next Olympic Games, gone. There was no Olympic Games. Why is that? Why was there no Olympic Games? Because there was war. The whole world changed. All the events were prevented. COVID, what did that do? The Olympic Games, did they run in 2020? No. Everything changes when an event like this happened. You think something like World War II was huge, but COVID, it covered the entire world. There were some countries not involved in World War II. Do you know even Corona got to McMurdo Station in Antarctica? There wasn't a place that the coronavirus didn't get to. And it's changed everything. So Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said, I knew Allah bi fasakh al-azaim. That cancels everything that you have firm intention on doing. They're going to happen, that's it. It can't be stopped. Something like this happens. Ends everything. The second thing he says, وَحَلَّ الْعُقُودِ. Hal al-uqud is something you see all the time. How often have you watched a television show or you watched a movie? You know, and then they show the hero, he's tied up to some contraption, he's going to fall into an acid bath, and what's going to happen next? The screen zooms out and you're thinking, oh my God, they're finished. And somehow they get out of it. You might think this is in the movies. This is in true life. And it happens to you every day. Every single day of your life. You see one of your children, for the parents, running, you see the kid fall, his head bounces right near the edge of the table, just misses it. Okay? Something just changed. You see in other things, how do you see it? You see a problem that you have. I'm never going to get out of this. And then somehow Allah changes this problem. Completely gets you out of it. So he says, this is the second thing. When I have a problem, when I have something, I have a predicament, Allah resolves this predicament. That's how I know God exists. Otherwise, things would be as they were. You know? Honestly, think about it. The way we live, the country we live in. How many of your kids play outside in sheds and garages? You know how many redback spiders are there? Nothing happens. Kid comes back out. You know how many things are out there that want to kill you and you live and you survive? This is evidence of there's a creator. There are more things out there that want to kill you than things that want to make you live. Even ants, if they bite you or sting you, some ants sting. They bite you or they sting you, they'll put a damper on your evening. Doesn't matter, someone is going to do something to you. Allah Azza wa Jal gets you out of a problem. The third thing he says, وَنَقْضِ الْهِمَمِ. Okay, نَقْضِ الْهِمَمِ is when someone has a plan. Allah thwarts it. Allah exposes his plan and he gets it out of the way. Take a look at the traveling to the shrine of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. How many have tried to prevent people from visiting Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Shah Rida al-Pahlawi, he was of the first to stop people to do in the 21st century, to stop the people from ziyarat Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and doing the ziyarah or doing majalis, even prevented hijab. Saddam would prevent people from ziyarat al-Imam Hussein alayhi salam. One person after another would try and stop the Husseini path. Not only unbelievers, even Wahhabis who claim Islam would do the same thing. Even Sushis who claim Tashayyu' would do the same thing. How often you see a Sushi get up and say, Ziyarat al-Arba'in, where did they get this from? What's the point of doing this? You know? I'd like to see the Sushi get up and say the Mardi Gras, what's it from? What's the point of doing? Why is it they always want to attack something religious? Why is it their point is always attacking something religious? Because there's a war against the truth all the time. There's a war against the Khat of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, even the Shia presence in the Middle East. How many times have they planned to annihilate the Shia presence in the Middle East? How many fitna after fitna, problem after problem they could. Remember I said Donald Trump even himself admitted that who made ISIS? He said, look it up. He says it 4 times. He says the American government, he says the Barack Obama administration made ISIS. He says this. They never negate. The Republicans never came out and negated this. So thing after thing that came against us. Remember ISIS, the scourge of ISIS. How did they all disappear? Allah Azza wa Jal. This is evidence. And we go back to World War II. It's a prime example of World War II. Hitler's war machine. That's why the army was called the war machine. The Nazi war machine was unstoppable. Anyone that studied World War II will know this. The Nazi war machine was unstoppable. The only thing that beat the Nazis was what? Allah. Winter came way too early. And the German soldiers were so poorly equipped, it turned the tables, and that was their biggest defeat. It was the Russians that defeated the Nazis. The Americans only recently admitted this, not the Americans. The Americans came in, you know what the Americans did? You know if 2 people get into a fight and one person knocks the other guy out, and the friends come in and start kicking the body on the ground? That's what the Americans did. They were the people kicking the body on the ground. It was the Russians that threw the knockout punch. Finally, the point that I hate when people say Mother Nature intended this. You ever notice they always talk about nature? Mother Nature did this, Mother Nature did that. This isn't a new thing. This isn't a thing that David Attenborough mentions and all these other documentary narrators mention. This isn't something that evolutionary biologists came up with. This isn't a term that was coined by Dawkins, nor a term coined by even Darwin or anyone like that. It's an old thing. The old thing that would say at-tabi'ah, nature. Now, Al-Imam al-Sadiq, the 6th Holy Imam, is asked about this. This is in the book of Tawheed for Al-Mufaddal. Mufaddal says to him, Ya Mawlai, inna qawman yaz'umuna anna hadha min fi'l at-tabi'ah. There are people that say nature caused all this to happen. So the Imam says to him, Salhum, ask them, an hadhihi at-tabi'ah. Ask them about nature. Ask them what about nature. He says, أهي شيء له علم وقدرة على مثل هذه الأفعال. He says, ask them, does nature have what? Ilm and qudra. Does the nature have knowledge and power to be able to do these things? Because they say nature intended. Then they use the word intended. So nature wanted this to happen. Does nature have the knowledge and the power? Am laysat kadhalik, or is it not this way? It says فَإِن, when you go back to them, it says فَإِن أَوْجَبُوا لَهَا الْعِلْمُ وَالْقُدْرَةِ. If they say nature does have knowledge and nature does have ability, so it says فَمَا يَمْنَعُهُمْ مِنْ إِثْبَاتِ الْخَالِقِ فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ صَنْعَتُهُ. So the moment that I accept that nature, which is another term for Allah, they say Mother Nature, it's Allah. It says if they say Mother Nature has power, Mother Nature has ability, that means they might as well just concede and say that it's God. Because they've already conceded to the ability of there being such a creation of this manner. And then he says, وَإِن زَعَمُوا أَنَّهَا تَفْعَلْ هَذِهِ الْأَفْعَالِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا عَمَدٍ. So he says that if they say no, that nature does all these actions with no knowledge and no purpose. They just happen. It just doesn't. They just happen. That's the way things happen. He said if they say this, وَكَانَ فِي أَفْعَالِهَا مَا قَدَّرَاهُ مِنَ الصَّوَابِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. When you look at creation, how pure is it? And how wise is the way it's made? Think about this. Do you see any animals in an environment they're in that's not for them? Like, I mean, why don't we have our eyes on the bottom of our feet? Seriously. Do you imagine everyone has to raise their foot to look at everybody when they see them? And every time they walk, you know, if they walk on a thorn, that's it, they got their eye poked. Why is there such a perfection in the way that we're created? Why is it so perfect? If this is the case, he says, عُلِمَ أَنَّ هَذَا الْفَعْلِ لِلْخَالِقِ الْحَكِيمِ. So either way they lose, because it will be known that this is a creation made by a creator that is wise. Obviously the way creation is, it shows it's apparent that there is a wise creator. فَإِنَّ الَّذِي سَمَّوْهُ طَبِيعَةً هو سنته في خلقه الجارية على ما أجراها عليها. He says the thing that they call Mother Nature or nature, he says, is Allah's system. This perfect system he has, the laws that he has that govern everything, is Allah's system. Just as we call the laws of what? Physics and the way that the way things happen, these are the laws that Allah has put in place for things to function. This shows that there's a very measured approach by this creator for this planet to what? Sustain life, and for life to subsist on this planet. So the Imam is telling them, if you ask them, does nature have the ability and the knowledge? Then they're talking about God. If nature does not, then it's not possible for this to be the creator, because everything is so precise and accurate. So these are all the things that will bring you towards acknowledging that there is a creator, that there is someone that created this world, someone that created the universe, and whoever is blind about this will be blind when it comes to the hereafter. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us to be of those that have sight in our eyes and in our souls, that we see what is righteous. We ask Allah never to deviate us away from this path. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy on our deceased. We ask Allah to cure our sick. We ask Allah to fulfill our needs. We ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of the just, the justice that will cover the land, that once He comes here, there will be no more rulers that are unjust. You won't be seeing this anymore. This is why we ask Allah to hasten His reappearance. Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi, arwahuna fidah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. اللهم قل لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، وإلى أرواح موتانا وموتاكم، وإلى روح المرحوم السيد خليل الحسيني who died recently. أبو هاشم رحمه الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.